Hey, I'm live. This is Tuesday, February 11th, and there's Elly. Hey, Elly.
Hey,
Look at that gorgeous blouse you're wearing.
well, it's my pullover. It's all striped and sparkly. My granddaughter has one just like it, and I'm cold today, so
No, in contrast to me, I'm actually warm. I still in my paint shirt, but oh my goodness, you're gonna have to forgive me today. I've got to drink water. I inhaled and swallowed some fiberglass trying to get a light fixture installed. Finally, it took me about an hour to finally get it. The other one, identical to it, went right up, no problem. And I could not find the holes and get them into the screw. Anyhow, what a mess. So anyhow, I'm struggling to swallow. I got junk in my throat because of the fiberglass. So no update on Larry. We haven't heard a word. It'll probably be a while before we hear anything, if we hear anything. So let's just be patient and keep this going as long as you'll let us. And I've been working and cleaning and stuff, so I haven't been listening much to news, Elly. So take it away. It's all yours today.
oh, okay. Well, heck, I had quite a bit. It's on a lot of it's on the primaries, and um, they were saying 25% of Trump's crowd was Democrats. Yeah, I heard that, and I rewound it just to make sure. And that's what they said this morning on Fox and Friends, and they were really surprised. And we're
Mayor
seeing
Pete,
a
I
lot
think,
of independents
didn't Mayor
now.
Pete didn't Mayor Pete have about 1,500 at his?
Um, he said there was 1,200 or 12,000 inside, and
No, that's
just
at
this.
Trump's. That's Trump's. What about Mayor Pete? I think he had I think he had 1,500 at his last night.
Um,
But it
the
was
crowd size
interesting.
didn't look that big. I
Yeah.
just, they kept showing it, and they're so deceptive when they want to
Well,
show.
when they show just the front, that probably means that's all there is.
Yeah,
And it's interesting that Joe Biden didn't even hang around for the results. He was afraid the newspaper, he was afraid the journalists would ask him if he was quitting, and so he headed on down to North Carolina for theirs on the
I
29th.
like his what was it, lion pony squad or pony something that he said to that girl. And then they had a big interview with her, and I caught two different interviews, one with Fox and then one with I believe it was OAN, and she said, I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought he was yelling at me. And she said she didn't have a clue. And she said, and not to mention, I've never seen a John Wayne movie.
Well, she's young.
So, oh my goodness. But the independents are even considering um, looking at Trump. They're about 50-50 split. So we could even gain independence because one of the gentlemen they talked to, he said he doesn't even know who the independent is running. He hadn't heard of nobody.
I haven't heard. Have you? I haven't heard of anybody yet.
No, and I'm waiting, but I did go and look see what they had, and it was like five. One was the Tea Party. One was it really didn't. I never heard of the name before, and it wasn't really saying much. And the other three were independent socialists. And it was like, oh boy, now we got independent socialists we have to worry about. And there it is. Pam said it. Lying dog face pony soldier is what he called her.
Yeah, because she said she'd been at the Iowa caucus, and he didn't believe her.
I think he's going fast. And this is my opinion, Mary Ellen. I just get the feeling that they're wanting Biden in so Hillary can be vice.
And then he'll be.
And then she can,
They'll,
and then he
they'll
can
do
be
amendment.
Arkansas side.
They can do it. Well, no, I think they'll do it. I don't think they do that. That'd be a little too obvious. I think they do an amendment 25 and put her in.
It's just really hard because she's, I heard over the last 3 days, I've heard her say vice president, and I heard her say no, she isn't running, to maybe she'll consider president again. So I think she's a dingbat, just like Biden is. They must have drank the same Kool-Aid. So, but it was that, and the socialism is really starting to scare even some of the networks now. I wish I could. I know his face, but I don't know his name. And he said, he didn't want socialism. He said, definitely he don't want socialism.
Amy Klobuchar wasn't she socialist in the very beginning? She already today is saying she's not.
Well, it's because everybody's starting to go. I mean, I've seen a guy on CNN now, an ABC anchor, and now NBC. They're all saying they don't want socialism. Maybe they're starting to think about what is going on. Maybe the media is starting to turn a little bit, and realize that this country don't need socialism. And it's so it's so scary to even think about it, of what they could possibly do and what they had, like Larry was saying. They're putting all this into place, and Hillary should have gotten it, and it would have turned socialism. And it's really the independents and the Democrats that are not liberal really need to take a long, hard look at what socialism is going to bring. And I just don't think they want this. I think they're starting to get cold feet. Now, of course, Pelosi's not, but the moderate conservative Democrats, I think they're starting to get cold feet. And
well, I think the moderates had better wake up to the fact that their party has gone so far to the left that if they support the Democrats, it's over for us. And that it's over for the liberals as well as the conservatives. We're in the same boat. Done. Yeah.
And Bernie Sanders, he has been, pushing socialism since the 60s, because he supported Cuba. And, Joe Biden, I really don't think he knows what he wants. I don't know if he knows. Some days I think he wishes he was a Republican. The man is just, have you ever listened to one of his whole speeches? It's really confusing. I mean, I thought Nancy Pelosi, you couldn't understand her. He just makes no sense. I finally broke down and listened to one, and it was like, they just need to let this old man retire, because it's sad watching him. It's really sad. And
so did he get in just to keep the investigation off his back, so that he can say, you're going after me because I'm running?
And Randy, with the stop and search, it's been known that Bloomberg was anti. I mean, he's kind of like Hillary. He thinks of Black Americans as thugs and criminals. And she had a big speech in Arkansas when they were trying to get a handle on some of the gangs. And she was calling them all thugs and criminals. And of course, they cut that all out of the speeches. But Larry could probably even tell you about that speech, if he hasn't already. And this is gonna hurt him for the Black vote, and that's what he was counting on. And what gets me is, when I did my show on Dreamland Ballroom, and what it is, it's a old Masonic temple, and it was changed into a ballroom where all the greats had come in and was playing there. And it made over on the other side of the river, it made a lot of Black Americans very, very wealthy. And we're talking in the 60s. And they had people like B.B. King and Etta Fitzgerald and Sammy Davis. They were all, they wouldn't perform in the clubs on the Little Rock side, but the other side um, of the river, they were playing, and they were becoming very, very wealthy, and they started building over there. And that is when pretty much the Democrats had started voting that they couldn't do that no more. And they started condemning their buildings and started crushing the businesses. And I mean, today it's just, it was so bad that they scraped the buildings all the way to the pads. They didn't want no remnants. And the freeway is so close that they would never be able to rebuild. And the thing about it was, what I discovered is like Chicago, Baltimore, New York, LA, there's probably even more cities that we know are having issues with crime, and they're faltering. They're sanctuary cities. They have the hugest gang population. And these poor people in these inner cities, now feel sorry for them, because they have been promised for decades that the Democrats were going to write in programs that would fix their issues, would give them more jobs. And then over the decades, we find out one by one, the mayors, their senators, their congressmen have been embezzling all that money that they've received from the federal government.
Well, listen, I mean, millions were given to Baltimore to help with the inner city issue. And, you know, I was reading something just this morning. Hey, Elijah Cummings, where'd all that money go?
Him and his wife got in trouble for it. And see, that's what's going on with these inner cities. And they want to make them sanctuary cities. And that just burdens what Trump does, because Trump is going to bring the jobs into the inner cities. And if they flood them with the illegals, you know who's going to get the jobs first. And it's going to keep these inner cities in poverty. And, you know, we've got to stop what's going on. And Barr, yesterday, I believe, he's now going after the inner cities for ICE, and we need to change these laws. And that's where, you know, we've been talking about voting. We have got to look at these mayors and our city councils, because they're the ones that are keeping the inner cities in poverty. And, you know, it's not just the Black Americans. It's a whole bunch of different races, that even Mexicans that have come up legally and got their status. And, you know, the only thing they could afford was the inner cities. And now they're in poverty. And then they're stuck. I've kept a friend that through my court thing, that court TV stuff, that her family lives in Chicago, and they are so stuck, they can't even move. There's no way they could even move, because no jobs, no work. They're living off the system. And that's what socialism is. It's putting you in that. Socialism is a lot of government, a lot of programs, but then the high taxes. And then it keeps you in an inner city, where the Republican conservative is less government and expects you to work more to keep more of your money and less taxes. And a lot of people don't realize that. And it's getting to where we have to do something about the inner cities. And when you're talking inner cities, you know, like San Francisco, that's also dealing with the homeless. And for them to want, this is the other thing that was the kicker, they want to legalize all drugs. And I think that one lady that's running, Klobuchar, yeah, she wants all the drugs to be legal, even heroin. And look at San Francisco. There are needles everywhere. And, you know, I was living out there when they had the response to help heroin addicts. They gave them free, clean needles. Now there's needles everywhere in San Francisco. And that's what happened. And to make it legal that's what socialism is. you get them dependent on those drugs. And they just, they'll just put up with a box to live in and a box of food a month, and then of course the government gets to keep all that money that's pouring in on the taxes. They don't have to do social programs anymore.
I hear the states get like 40,000 a year for the homeless. And where does that money go?
In the pockets.
When the president put, I don't remember how many million into autism last year or the year before, sometime in the last 2 years, I got pretty upset because none of it was going to help parents. They were putting it into research. And these researchers, get people at the top would get a big hefty income for leading this new department, and it just, there was no trickle down. And I just thought, man, that's just your typical government brouhaha nothing.
Mm-hmm. And they love writing in all those new programs because it's more money. And what gets me is what with the veterans, and they will give the veterans so much, but it's all the top administration people that get all that money, and then very little trickles down to the vets. And and they're saying, well, you guys get money, well, the money isn't there for the veterans. I have a good friend that's a vet, and he only gets $600 a month. That's it. And a little bit of food stamps. I think he says he gets 59. And trying to live in Oklahoma City and in her city because he has to. And he's had pretty much everything he's owned has been stolen. And, if he can't carry cash, he's been jumped before, and it's just sad to watch. And there's nothing I can do to help, because if I help him, I'm just making him dependent. And plus he lives out there, close to his kids. And that is what's going on with our vets. And we wonder how come so many are in San Francisco on the streets. I mean, you can't touch rent of just a 1-bedroom, small, tiny little hole for less than $1,000. And if you're only getting $600-700 a month, there's no way you can have rent.
It doesn't even cover your rent in a low cost area.
Yeah.
Anything else.
And that's what's got all of them on the streets. And we should be doing our vets better. And thank goodness Trump is doing stuff to help the veterans at this point now. I was waiting. Now I'm waiting for the homeless. Because I always hold that. Okay, Trump, you need to do something. He don't work as fast as I would work. I mean, he needs to get me in there so I can just go kick some butt. I don't have to run for office. I'll just go in there and kick butt for him. Go after that Mr. Venderman. And the thing with even the Venderman thing is Obama stretched the employees there at the NSC from 50 to over 200. And that's why Trump is taking them all down. And it's not that he's firing anybody. I think the brother got fired. But, they still got jobs, and they could still go get a good job. They're just going to be not liked by Trump people because they're famous. The system is rigged against the people under the government democratic ideas that they have. They're not for us. They really aren't. It's about them making money, and a lot of them are millionaires from what they've been doing. The career politicians. Nancy Pelosi is a millionaire or billionaire by now, and here they're saying, oh, we need to go after all the millionaires. Well, you guys are millionaires too, and then take away the gas in the cars and the planes, and you're going to make us all walk. And they're flying around in airplanes. The Democrat Party is not for the people. And we voted Trump in on being not a politician. We got him in as a businessman. And that's what I don't think either party understands is he is here to fix our economy. He's not here to chum up with the elite and rub elbows with Putin. He's not. Putin's a politician. He's a businessman. And so what if he puts hotels all over the world? He did that before, and when he gets out of office, he'll probably do it again. And hope for a really good economy. It's
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to start thinking pretty quickly here about 2024, because whatever we hold on to, if Trump gets in this year, whatever we hold on to, it'll be really important to be prepped for. There are things that he can put in place, but if a Democrat gets back in power, stroke of a pen, so much just gets wiped out the very first day, just like Clinton did.
Oh, they would end everything. What I'm hoping for is that we build a strong enough Republican base going into after this election, after 2020, that people will see where the Democrats have gone wrong and maybe dissolve the party. I mean, not that we only need a Republican party, but there's the independent party. And the independents aren't so socialist as bad as the Democrats are. And the independents could even be the Tea Party. And, they're very level-headed. If you look at the stuff they want, it's just not a very big party. So, and right now, the only thing that the Democrats really have to run on is trying to say Trump lied. He lied, he lied, he lied. And the stuff they're coming out with is just stupid. I like how Mark Levin, he says they're a bunch of idiots. And they are. They're a bunch of idiots. They're just, anymore, just he lied. He's not keeping his promises. And just lies. Oh, man, the lies over the last few days with Medicare. That was the other one that they could keep trying to scare people with. And I tell my viewers all the time, call Social Security. Call them, ask them how it's going to affect your benefits. And, every time I call, I get the same lady. It's a manager of the local branch. And she says, oh, no, not again. They got another one out, huh? And I said, oh, yeah. And she says, well, I've looked it up, and this is what's going on. And at this point, the only thing that she told me was the Medicaid, and that is SSI for disability. There are too many long-term cases where what they're doing is someone will get hurt at work, and so the state pays it, and then they got to file for Social Security, the SSI. Well, it is only a temporary fix. In order to get permanent, you got to go to have your doctor sign a letter saying you can no longer work. Well, the problem is they keep putting them in rehab. Well, after I think it's 36 weeks of rehab, it usually ends. Well, these people still aren't ready to go back to work. And so they're trying to keep their SSI going. And what this is going to do is it's going to cut and put a deadline on a certain amount of time that you might have to refile with your state or get your doctor to put you permanent status. And it's going to cut millions off what's being done. Now, the good thing that was in the bill that they're not mentioning is this budget is going to cut the cost of prescriptions, which that's a good thing. See, they're not mentioning that. They're just saying they're going after the benefits. And it has nothing to do with your SSA, has nothing to do with your Medicare. It's that, and then you're getting into the programs through the welfare department, which is your HUD. And this is where I think a lot of people are getting a little upset because HUD will be cut. But I believe they're going to move it over to where those that it might hurt, they can get state and city assistance. It's called CAPCA here. and you apply, and they have so much a month you can get help with for your electric, your gas, your water, and it's been working in many states. And that's it looks like they're going to cut HUD a little bit, but it sounds like they're just going to make the qualifications a little higher, since everybody's going back to work. So HUD would be affected. Other than that, she said nothing else is changing. She said there was an increase to everybody's benefits, and as it looks in going into 2021, everybody will see another raise on their benefits. So that is the only thing she could tell me. So, and she even said, please tell the viewers that if they see this and they get upset over what they're reading in the news, to call their local office and to ask what is going on and what your fears are. Now, Randy said not in Illinois, they don't care. Randy, call around to some of the different offices, because I've got one here that I could go in there and punch the lady in the nose. And then we have another office that's in a different town that I call, and they're just sweet as ever. You just have to call. And calling the 800 line, with how busy they are, either you're going to have a long waiting time, and they're going to be snippy on stuff, I find out. If you just call around to the local offices until you find one that will really talk to you.
Yeah, I know Randy's done that quite often. So Illinois has really got some major issues. It's the same thing you have in wherever the Democrats are in control of the government. You got issues. You got the sanctuary cities. You got them. The graph. And yeah,
that's why that's why we need to vote some of these politicians out there, and the mayors, and the like the Chicago mayor. Oh my gosh, I have went rounds with that office, just because of the corruption that happens there, and it is so corrupt. And start looking at your mayors and your city councilmen, and it's time to change what's going on. And as long as we all get in there and vote, and we make sure we're voting for our party for those positions, it also helps people like Tom Fenton keep track of voter fraud, because those numbers have got to match up. They got to match up with people registered. They got to match up with the people that are voting for the president have got to match up with the one with the mayors. All those numbers got to match either way. And when there's a fluctuation, that's when they see the fraud. And, I hate to tell everybody, even if there's someone crummy, it's going to be a Republican, or they're just not good enough. At this point, we're almost forced to, so they can weed out the corruption in our voting system. I mean, Larry has spoke on that so many times. I don't know how many times I have, sat and listened to the shows, and he's always said that paper ballots, and there's got to be accountability, and voter registration cards, voter ID cards. We have to do that. And, like you said, we got to get in there and keep an eye on what's going at the precincts. You see a bus pull up, you call your commissioner. Call the commissioner.
Yeah, there's really no need for any buses to be coming. There are so many precincts that are close by. They don't need to be busing people around, but you also need to be paying attention. Look at license plates. And although it's kind of hard to find, to see when somebody's coming in with rental car, those aren't obvious. So the last time they used rental cars to cross state lines to do a lot of the voter fraud. The bigger issue, Larry says, though, is not the voter fraud. The bigger issue is the election fraud, because they can flip those machines and they can change a whole lot more votes than a few fraudulent voters coming in. You know, you can flip 1 million votes on a machine a whole lot faster than you can get 1 million people, to illegals or dead people or whatever, to vote. That's why we need to sign up with our Board of Elections to help the elderly vote, because the Democrats take over doing that job. And it's not right, because, you know, there's just a lot of people voting for others. And it's really easy to do. And, you know, it's just, it's problematic that the Democrats are doing that and the Republicans are not. Not that I'm not saying that the Republicans are cheating. But you know, we need honest people going in to help make this a legitimate vote, rather than having people going in and cheating on behalf of the elderly. So, you know, there are so many jobs in DC are career politicians and or career positions. I had a friend who can't read. She has dyslexia really bad and she can't read, and she had been promoted. And what happens around here is people are promoted just to get them out of your office. They can't be fired, and so you promote them. And so the bad people end up filtering up to the top, and the good people that you want to keep in your department get nothing. It's just backwards.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with the paper ballots is, you know, it's a really, really good idea, but at the same time, they can just walk out the door with them, and they can walk in the door with them. And, you know, and we can't trust the voting machines. Some were made by, I believe, Romney. I'm thinking it was him or Kerry, and then the other ones were by Soros. And it is so sad that we can't trust, with the technology that we have today, that we can't have an honest election. You know, and it's really sad. Or, you know, look at what happened in Ohio. You know, they tried to run this program, and I don't know what the program was, but whatever it was, it failed. And, you know, they're not using it and come to these other states, and everything's working just fine. And then we find out that Hillary is behind it, and she funded it, and 4 or 5 of her lawyers are in with programming it, and it just corrupt. You know, they tried to be corrupt once again. And, you know, it just amazes me that we can't just go on paper ballots and have people honest enough to be able to count these votes. But, you know, there's always one rat in the middle, and that's all it takes is one little rat in the middle, and it can corrupt the rest of them. And, or, you know, sneak stuff in and sneak stuff out. And
I wish we knew more of what was going on with Trump's committee for the election fraud. You know, we're not hearing anything about it. And Larry was working. I know he was getting insider information on some of that, and then that dried up. And you know, is Sarah Sanders running for governor this year?
I don't know. We still don't know. And then Asa, all of a sudden, he's like, loves Trump after this governor's thing. And I think it's only because he knows we're mad at him for what he does with Hillary and Bill. You know, he's one of their buddies, and he's taking campaign money from them. And all of a sudden, he went to this governor thing, and he's like made this turnaround. And it's like, you know,
it just seems like it's politically expedient just to keep his job. Just like I mean, look at some of the positive things that McConnell and Graham have done. Their jobs are on the line this year.
Mm-hmm.
They're up for
Well,
election.
all of them are.
No, not all. There are 20 Republican senators that are up for election. There 30. I think it's 13 Democrats and 20 Republicans in the Senate are up for re-election, and I don't remember all of them, but McConnell and Lindsey Graham are.
Well, they better step up because, you know,
But I don't care if they step up. They have been in office. They've been career politicians. Politics was never to be a career.
No. And as many times, I don't know about everyone else, but every time I vote, I'm signing for there to be term limits. And nothing ever comes of it because it never can get past the Congress and Senate. And it shouldn't be something they vote on. It should be something that if we have enough and we can vote on it, it would pass. But it's so annoying. Like you said, these career politicians like Pelosi. And look at Lee. He's been in the longest. I think I think he got in when he was like 21 years old. Now he's just an old man.
Is that Mike Lee?
Leahy.
Oh, Leahy. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
They celebrated because he's been in the longest. That's nothing to celebrate over. That's something to fear of what he's done. And he was even working with, I believe it was, I know it was Leahy and a few others. They were even looking into Ukraine. That was some info I got. And they found a letter on it. And they are so corrupt after so many years. I think when they first get in, they want to be the change, and then they just fall into the old ruts. And I really do believe that that's what's happening with these different inner cities. They get in there and everything's already running, and they don't know how to do the change. And so why not just leave it? And then it's like Cummings. Oh, they just adored Cummings when he passed, but he had stolen from his state, and so did his wife. And
from my state,
Wendy, I went and saw Jan Morgan when she was going through the state, and she actually answered quite a few of my questions. I thought it was really neat. I asked her about the boys. She said she really didn't want to go on the boys because there was too many changes to the state. But then I got to talk to her afterwards, and me and her had a nice long conversation, and she would have been great. She just didn't get out early enough to be able to take it from Asa, because she was working on it. I think she didn't get out early enough. And a lot of people don't know about her. She was going to run against Asa, and she has one of the biggest gun ranges in Little Rock, and actually for Arkansas. Pro-gun, beautiful little lady. And I think she really would have been wonderful for our state. It would have been like having Trump. I mean, we're already really good, and we're growing. The massive growth here in Arkansas. And the jobs are just tremendous. I mean, we're begging people to work, and of course, you get them kids don't want to work, but the cost of living is very low still, and they're just building away here. But yeah, I really did. I'm so glad I was able to go see her, and I got to do it twice, and I really did enjoy listening to her. So. And she said if she didn't make it, she'd never run again. I was like, oh, darn. And then we heard Sarah Huckabee. Now, Huckabee, she has been, I think she's part of that committee you were talking about.
Right.
The election committee. But also, Tom Fenton has got, I believe, 3 lawyers that are on it. And I believe Iowa, it was either, I think it was Iowa. that they caught too many registered compared to what was actually registered. And one of the southern states got it too, for too many dead people on the registration rolls. And that was in California too.
There were 5 or 8 precincts in Iowa that had more registered voters than the number of adults in the precinct.
And that's what he's been doing. And he keeps going back to all these different states. I believe he's been in Kentucky twice and has caught them. So thank goodness for Tom Fenton that he's taken it upon himself to keep going around and looking into this. And there's even states that you have to go look at his documents and put in like voter fraud or election fraud, and you'll get all kinds of documents, and you'll see all the different states that he's done that he hasn't even mentioned. And I was really surprised how many he's been to and has caught just about all the states. And it's all Democrat fraud. It's all on the Democrat fraud, not the Republican. So.
Well, I mean, Larry knows very well the kind of cheating and rigging that has gone on through the
Senator
years.
Byrd was another one that was in there for a very long time, and he was KKK.
He was West Virginia, wasn't he?
Yeah. And not to mention, even Obama went to his funeral and praised him. And, you know, when I seen the article, and you could still find it, it's Senator Byrd's funeral, and Biden was there. About 85% of the Democrat Party went and praised how wonderful he was. And then I just fell over when I seen Obama in there. It was like, you got to be kidding me. You know, a black man going to a KKK's funeral and calling him wonderful and even almost a mentor. It's like, what the heck? You wouldn't catch me dead at that man's funeral.
Gloria's talking about praying for Fitton and Trump, and I think that's an excellent idea, Gloria. I had several texts with Julie today. She had texted me. She was trying to get hold of the White House and couldn't get through and was wondering why. And so that got me, put a fire under me to call the White House. I was able to get through, and then she got through. So, you know, and then we were talking about the fact she was asking, I wonder how many positive calls they get. And so just reading the chat. How many calls they get that are positive versus negative. Larry had told me, or told us sometime last year, that there are robocalls coming in from China that are filled with it, just filling up their inbox and filling up, you know, keeping them busy, taking all these calls that are negative, but they're robocalls coming from China. And I'm not sure how Larry had found that out, but he had. And he was able to get that word to the president because, you know, they needed to know that it really wasn't just information, just true negative comments, that a lot of this was just fake. So.
Yeah, China, I think they interfere more than Russia does. To be honest, I really don't think Russia interferes as much as I think they do. You know, they claim they do. I think it's more China that does it because they're so far advanced in technology. They could be, you know, 5-6 years ahead of us and can interfere and hack and, you know, make the internet lines dance, and we wouldn't know it. As far advanced. Even, you know, I think that's why Barr came out a few days ago and warned about 5G, that we need to come up with something and not just let China corner the market. We need to find something that we know is going to be safe, security-wise, to our national security. And I think he was basically calling upon, I think, Erickson to come up with a better program than what they have out So we don't really have to bring China in on a 5G. And I'm still learning about that stuff. I mean, it's so hard when I'm trying to look into stuff and then I have news come out on 5G and I'm like, oh boy, I don't know. You know, I'm good at pecking on the computer, you know, little 2-finger thing. And trying to figure out 5G has been really hard, and the effects of it that we get from it. I thought trying to learn the smart meter was hard. Boy, this is 5G is, it's definitely pushing my thoughts and my brain power to the limits.
Yeah, I heard a rumor this morning that the coronavirus, or the COVID, I think, is the new name for it, that it's hitting all the places where 5G was started in China. So it's
Well, you know, I
crazy.
had a lady that got a hold of me and wanted me to do an investigation on 5G. And she said it was her ex-husband, and they had put up like 10 cell towers around his neighborhood. And then he started getting sick and getting headaches. Well, he called her up and they were supposed to go out to the park and out to the lake and spend some time with the kids. And he was in a really good mood. And then she waited, but he never showed up. Well, then the police showed up at the house, at her house, and said that he had shot his roommate and they had him in custody. And he was crazy. And he was claiming this is what 5G did to him. That he felt his brain burning. So he went to get a gun because he thought someone was in the house and was shooting him. He started hallucinating. And when they got him away from the house, and he was in jail, everything calmed down and the hallucinations stopped. Well, the weird thing about it was 8 other people within a 10-block radius that I had looked into, all had been admitted to the hospital for severe migraines and their brains burning, and people that were schizophrenic went crazy and locked up. You know, but there's no way to prove it. I don't have, you know, I could just, that's all circumstantial evidence for an investigator, but that's no proof. But it was proof enough to her to know that he didn't kill his roommate on purpose, because they were best friends for life almost. And he couldn't, when he said when he woke up, he couldn't believe what he had done. And I got to talk briefly on the phone to him, and he repeated everything she had said, that he felt like his brain was burning, and he had the sense that there were people in the house trying to kill them. So he got his gun and started shooting. And when he woke up, his friend was dead. So, you know, I that was as far as I could really go with it. I couldn't really help her any more than that, because there was just nothing there. And now he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. And, you know, I was there. I helped her through it, because you know, she asked me for help. And I wasn't just going to say, okay, here's your info, bye, because I felt really bad for her. Until he got his verdict and his sentence, I stuck with her. And from time to time, she does get a hold of me and say, you know, he is so sorry for what he's done. But there's just, you know, sorry doesn't change, you know, the crime, you know, and I don't think he needs to be let out. You know, that's why we put people there, is because they do stuff, you know, and it's unfortunately, and good behavior, he can get out early. This couple's in their 30s. So if he gets life, there's a good possibility, you know, close to 60 years old, he could get out and get to see his kids. But 5G, I think is a bad thing. We'll just have to see what happens with it. And, you know, I don't know enough about it to, you know, except for this. And, you know, get this, I did a GPS where you can zoom in, and I did count all those cell towers, and they were within maybe a block of his house, 10 of them. And why 10 cell towers that close? You know, there's other things that's popped up too. It's like a pole that has a ball on the top. And those people are, from what the studies have shown, people that have those real close to where they live, they get headaches. Ours that we got in town are close to the ballparks. So, you know, I'm a good distance from it.
Now, they don't have 5G in Conway yet, do they? I know they have it in Little Rock.
I don't think so. You know, I haven't really looked. I'm almost fearful to, you know, because with my MS, I get headaches anyway. And I don't want to, oh, we have 5Gs and then kind of like think myself into headaches. You know, I don't know. You know, I hate having headaches, and you get them a lot with multiple sclerosis. And you know, it's tough to say what's going on because China isn't really good about releasing all the facts.
I'll be right back. Okay.
So I don't think we'll really know for another year or so of what really is behind everything with 5G.
Okay, I'll call you.
And yeah, Sherry, you're right. We all need to do the research on it. We tell our viewers, you know, do the research. We can give you guys info. And, you know, once you start looking into the stuff, some people find it really interesting, especially computer guys that love looking into programming. And they're the ones that could look into this and see what's going on, and they would know the lingo that they use. And, you know, while you were on the phone for that second, I was telling them that China's not going to give us all the info of what it can do. They're just not. And that's what
you mean, the positive
all of us.
Or the negative? You're talking about positive or negative or both?
I think negative, just like this virus. You know, they told us, oh, it was nothing. And then they told us, well, they'd only just found out about it. And then come to find out, they'd known about it for 2 months. Well, then they said it was only maybe a week in quarantine. Now we're at 24 days. Today they announced, the CDC announced, it's 24 days of quarantine. And we have one more case in the States. So it puts us at 12. Now, the good thing on that is it was like they were getting hundreds a day coming down with it in China. We've only gotten one person in, I'm thinking, right about a month. So keep washing your hands. They say it's everybody, 5% of the public wash their hands, they said. And they said if you would just keep your hands and your mouth or your hands off your face, that cuts the germs 80%, 70, 80%, probably even more than that. Yeah, I don't know about them cameras everywhere, Pamela, up on the poles at all the stop signs, but there's a good side about it. The one thing I hate about all them cameras, you know, you feel very invaded, and they seem evasive, but for the crimes that they have solved across this country and the criminals and the serial killers they have caught with those cameras or kidnappers is phenomenal. I mean, I like to watch investigative, that ID channel, and they're always talking about, there's a show where they do the surveillance cameras and how they catch people on it. And so you almost were like, oh, I hate it, but dad gummit, why does it have to have good qualities to it? You know, I can't hate it if it's good for us. And it is helping to catch criminals, but I personally don't want it sitting on the pole staring at me. You know, it's getting more like China. Now, if we could get people like to fear the garbage problem like they do in China, we'd have nice, clean streets. Because, you know, they have really nice streets over there. Us, we have garbage in San Francisco. So that would be the only thing I would really adopt from China is their clean streets, because the rest of it is just um, too communist. I mean, their whole life is run by their government, and it's really sad. Yeah, Dylan, I know that that's a big one with me. The kids that disappear and not even seen, not even seen. Are the pedophiles and the sex traffickers that smart to avoid them? Or is it somebody that can pull tapes and they're just never seen? It's so hard to tell because they've caught so many public officials with sex trafficking or pedophilia. Um, but those cameras should be catching them. If I mean, they might be, and they're just not letting us know. But um, it is so scary, the kids, and they're all 12 to about 14 years old that are coming up missing. And even they were even saying some of the states now that they want to lower the age of adult to 16. You realize the 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds that could be raped and not, they wouldn't charge them as an adult. More and more they're trying to lower that age down. And because it's, the 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, it's usually the hardest that are hit with being raped. And we keep lowering that age, and they keep wanting to say, oh, it's for the vote. Well, they don't realize what they're doing to our kids,
Yeah.
And really, I don't know. I could be just a dumb mom and grandma, but they just really don't mature until they're about 20, 21. Let them be a kid. I got a 22-year-old granddaughter that she is now like thinking future. Hey, I got to plan a future. Before that, she was having fun. And, she had a wonderful time. She worked, but it wasn't no pressure on her. And, kids need to be kids. We don't need to be, burden them with voting at 15 to 18 years old.
It's actually 25 when the brain finally has stopped the development of the maturing process. At least that was the last I heard. We've been an hour. We're just about to the top of the hour. So I'm going to thank you guys for being here. We'll be back tomorrow. The first thing I'll tell you if I hear something from Larry is, what I've heard. So just keep praying for him. Pray for our president. Pray for our country. That's about all I can say. Larry's PayPal account is there on the screen, and I know if money doesn't come out of an account in a certain amount of time, they send it back, and nothing's been sent back to me. And I had sent somebody had sent me a couple big donations to pass on that I did, and it has not come back. So somebody is using it on his behalf for sure, and that's what needs to happen. And I know there are a couple people that have, struggled to help Larry beyond what they could do, just as many of us have done. But they were expecting Larry's PayPal to cover the meds that they had bought on his behalf. And so I know some of that money does need to go there, probably still does. So anything you can do to help at this point is still a good thing, because we don't know what's happening until we hear something. If money's not being taken out, it will come back. I do know that because I've seen that happen. So appreciate your keeping Larry in prayer and doing what you can for him. And that's all I'm going to say. Thanks, Elly, for being here with me again today. And we'll be back tomorrow, same time. God bless you. And I'm going to say goodbye.